We have Guy. I don't know how long, actually, I don't know how long we have Guy for. He said he'd like to start at the beginning of our session. I'm hoping that means he's willing to stick around for most of the time and ask questions answer questions as long as we have them for him. But um, Guy Ellis is, as you know from my emails, one of the founding partners, yes, of Teralon Media. He can tell you about the story behind the name as well. I like it very much. And when I was looking for a photographer and a videographer for when I was in London, because for some time, a couple of years ago, I had seen this one photographer online, but he was based in New York. And there was no way I was going to New York just to get photographed by somebody. That was like some ridiculous expense. So I looked around and I knew Guy's work already because he was able to, he had done some May balls at Cambridge University, which is where Chris went. And I've known Cambridge for a long time. And so I asked Guy if he could do the same thing as this other guy was doing. And he said, yes, thank you, Guy, because I know I was outside of your niche, which is sports. And, you should see some of the stuff he's doing, like following marathoners and following, I can't even remember what they play anymore, but around the world to play it and take and take photographs and films of the teams as they're preparing and as they're playing and making these videos and stuff. Fantastic stuff. And so he said yes, even though I was outside his niche. And so I've been following him ever since, and I've been really, really impressed with how he's pivoted as well, and how he's moved from traveling the world, just like us, to not so traveling the world, but doing a lot of other stuff as well. And the business looks like it's flourishing. So Guy, the floor is yours to talk about whatever you'd like, as long as you at least talk a little bit about getting good images on Zoom and so on, as you promised.
Well, thank you very much, Julia. It's a pleasure to be here. Can I just check? With maybe you could respond for me, Julia. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Everything coming through fine.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, that's very, very kind introduction. So thank you. As Julia said, we run Teralon, and we're basically a digital content company, and we do photo, video content, etc., mostly digital, for other companies. Actually, just before I continue, it might be a good idea, Julia, do you think you can mute your mic?
Yes, I can. And do you need to share the screen? That was the other thing I wanted to ask you before I muted.
I'm not planning on sharing the screen, so
okay,
that's fine. Okay, great. As Julia was saying, we specialize in digital content for a variety of different brands and companies. The kind of big sports stuff that we do is, the marathon stuff was following Eliud Kipchoge, who was a Kenyan marathoner who last year was the first human ever to run a sub 2-hour marathon, which is very fast, as you can imagine. And obviously since then, we've in 2020 had to adapt to a lot of remote digital content. There's been a lot of podcasting. There's been a lot of remote interviews for corporates, etc. So we've been also learning how to get the best quality visually and audio wise out of remote Zoom calls, after doing stuff online and over calls, etc. So I'm hoping to share a little bit of that with you guys today as well. So I guess we'll crack straight on with that first, and then we'll go into a few other details afterwards. I won't keep you for too long. But first off, when it comes to calls, etc., I can see most of you have headphones and headsets already, which is great. But the best thing to do is for everyone to always wear headsets or headphones to take calls, because it stops that echo that you get when one person says something and then you hear it over and over and over again. So always make it best practice to wear headphones. And if you really can't, then just mute yourself when you're not talking. A common misconception is, especially because Zoom is a video platform, is that video is really important. And it is, but audio is actually more important. And that's something that applies basically throughout the professional content world. If you can see someone and it's okay, but they're kind of dark, but you can hear them all right, and you can hear them very clearly, then that's the most important thing, especially in your profession, as I'm sure you know. So if you're going to fix one out of two things, fix audio quality first instead of visuals, and don't worry about the visuals. In terms of audio quality, yep. Headsets, headphones, microphones. Many of you have got your mics on your headsets there, which is great. But also, as many of you will know as interpreters, be aware of microphone etiquette. Try not to breathe down the microphone, etc., which is a real problem when you've got headsets with the microphone right there and you're listening to someone else. And if you haven't muted yourself or you're not thinking about it, all you can hear is heavy breathing. So yeah, and because this is something that we've learned a lot of through doing a lot of remote podcasts. We do podcasts for various corporate companies, and we mostly have to dial in the guests. And it's the kind of thing that gets a guest like barred from coming on a podcast again, and poor audio quality. And if it really does make a difference if you know that you're going to dial in a guest and they're going to be incredibly high quality in terms of the actual audio quality that they'll give you, then you will get invited back. So this does make a really significant difference in terms of not just the ease of one call, but there are long-term kind of professional consequences for being easy to hear, easy to see, easy to work with in that sense. Which, yeah, also obviously implies to interpreting. Now, that's not to say that every Zoom meeting needs to be taken like a professional presentation. It doesn't. But I can see Julia laughing there. But I mean, if you're dining in to a big group Zoom call, then take it on your phone. If you're not going to be presenting, if you're not going to be talking, take it on your phone. Just listen in. It doesn't matter so much. But if you're a guest on a podcast, if you're really trying to impress, if you're actually presenting something, because we do virtual events now as well. So we sometimes have a couple of presenters in a studio and they're communicating with a guest who's been remote dialed in over Zoom or something. Then you really need to pay attention to this kind of stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that if you're good at it, you can get invited to more of these things, raise your professional and personal profile. So yeah. Audio, if you haven't already, and most people have in 2020, buy a decent microphone that you can plug in to your computer. Super simple. And if you want to get more technical than that, I don't know, I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, which is an English idiomism that teaching grandma to suck eggs is teaching someone to do something they already know. But if we want to get a little bit more complex, ideally choose a condenser microphone over a dynamic microphone. Condenser microphones will be best for what most of you need. Condenser microphones are basically better at picking up softer sounds like speech and vocals. Dynamic microphones do loud noises like instruments. So condenser microphones if you're choosing something. Audio quality aside from that, I'm sure many of us have done it. Reducing echo can really help. And if you have to, and you're not on video, put your head under a duvet. I'm not joking. If you are doing an audio only podcast and you're trying to get the best possible quality, or you're speaking to someone and it's audio only and they're relying on your audio being good, get a duvet, a heavy blanket, put it over your head, put it over the microphone, and put your mouth right next to the microphone and reduce the echo. So that will definitely improve audio quality. Sounds silly, but it's one of those things. If you're required to be on video, I don't recommend doing that because you might look a little bit weird and then you might not get invited back again. But that's one of those things. Moving on to visuals. Visuals, as I said, are secondary, but they can really differentiate and make you look a lot more professional. And when it comes to getting good visuals, if you're presenting, try and take it on a PC or laptop, i.e. not a phone. If you have to take a call on a phone, prop the phone up somewhere where it won't move so you're not shaking around. Static still camera is really important. The biggest thing that will make a very big difference to your visuals is light. You want your face to be facing towards a nice, big, soft, if possible, light source. Now, that could be a big window on an overcast day. But if the sun is out and it's midday, then you probably don't want blinding light straight from the sun in your eyes. So perhaps if you can face a large white wall, which light will bounce off and into your face then that gives you soft light. The reason this is important is because most of us have fairly basic webcams and they don't cope very well with low light. They get pixelated, grainy, don't look very good as soon as it gets a little bit dark. But if you give them a lot of light, you can make up for a lot of those deficiencies. What I'm doing here, although you can't see it, is my face is being lit by, there's a big light over there, and it's pointing at the wall just behind the camera. And then it's bouncing off the wall onto my face, which lights me in a soft way. So don't put bright light sources behind you, like a window or any other kind of light. And because webcams tend to automatically just adjust to what they can see, and you'll end up looking very dark. Other things, good Zoom etiquette, try not to have the laptop or whatever it is really far beneath you. You don't want to be looking up someone's nostrils. That's fairly basic stuff. Again, I mean, this is stuff that matters more if you're presenting in a professional kind of environment. If you're doing perhaps news interviews, like some kind of news appearance, presenting at a virtual event. Again, it matters less if you're just in a quick catch-up Zoom call, morning meeting. You don't really need to be worrying about this kind of stuff unless you want to impress your colleagues. So yeah, big light sources, don't have bright lights behind you. Ideally face a window, unless it's bright sunshine outside, then don't do that. In terms of other visuals that you might want to consider, a lot of times people tend to put themselves right up against a kind of plain white wall or something. And that's actually not the best thing to do unless you really have no other options. In terms of what looks visually the most pleasing, it's actually depth. So behind me, there's kind of office space, which is not very tidy right now, but there's office space and there's depth. If you're up right against a wall, so if there's a wall like right here, right behind me, it doesn't look very good. The human eye much prefers depth that you can see in the background, maybe a room, something like this. If you have to, if the option is really messy bedroom or white wall, then choose the white wall. But ideal scenario is some kind of room with a little bit of depth behind you. So not straight up against a white wall like a mugshot, because that's what it looks like. So those would be general tips for getting the best visual and audio professional kind of look out of Zoom calls. The other thing is, I'm sure you guys do this all the time, but some very general tips. If you're having audio trouble, if you're hearing a lot of audio echo, something like that, on a big group call, don't be afraid to just say, and this is our job normally as the kind of pro recorder in the room, don't be afraid to just say, sorry guys, I'm getting some really bad feedback over the line. Can everyone just mute themselves? The best thing to do if something is going really badly wrong audio wise, there's really horrible interference, is just say, right, let's pause it a second, everyone mute themselves. And then if you need to bring people in, go one by one to unmute themselves until you isolate the problem. That's something I learned. Oh yeah, good question from Julia. That's something I learned. I'll get to that in 1 second. That's something I learned by a bad experience in a large group call that I was supposed to be recording, and I couldn't just fix it. But the easiest way to do it is just mute everyone and then slowly bring people in one by one if you're getting really bad audio interference. So Julia has asked, are there settings we need to know in the Zoom program to improve the video and audio that we receive as well? There's a couple of things that you can do in Zoom or other programs to try and get the best out of it. First off, really simple, and I guess most of you are doing this already, use the actual Zoom app, desktop program, rather than just in the browser. The browser version does not give you as much control over microphone and camera settings as the app does. So once you go into the actual program, if you want to do HD video, then you want to go into the Zoom preferences, go to video settings, and select Enable HD. This will send or try to send high definition video from your camera rather than standard definition, and it will look a little bit better. However, be aware, if you're not on a very good internet connection, don't do that, because you'll end up sacrificing audio quality as it tries to send high definition video. So if you have the luxury of fast internet, then enable HD video under the video settings, and you'll look a little bit better, but that's a luxury only afforded by fast internet. So don't sweat it if you can't do that. Other things, under the mute button, or by the mute button on the app, there's a little up arrow which allows you to select speakers and microphones. I'm assuming most of you guys already know that. But you can choose a variety of different inputs. So if you've got an external, like, high quality mic plugged in, make sure, because we see this a lot, someone goes out and buys a nice expensive microphone, they plug it into their laptop and their Zoom, and their audio quality is still really bad. And it's because Zoom is still using the cheap internal microphone on their laptop, and they haven't switched it to pick up their nice, expensive new microphone. So make sure that when you go over to the mute button and click that little arrow, that you select microphone, whatever it's called, the nice, expensive one that you've just gone out and bought. And also, that can be a problem with headphones. Sometimes Zoom wants to send the audio straight out of your laptop speakers, not out of your headphones. Make sure that speaker selected is your headphones or headset, not just speakers. Those are pretty general tips for Zoom. Yeah, those are a couple of little things that you can do to try and improve that. Many of you might have come across other programs or be using other programs in other lines of work, depending on what clients like, etc. Microsoft Teams is pretty good if you download the app. Again, the web version is awful. If you are going to use Microsoft Teams, download the desktop app before you use it, because I've had that go wrong several times. You know, if a client invites you to a Microsoft Teams meeting, download the app for free, use the app, don't use it in browser, because it's a real nightmare in the browser. On some platforms, next question from Julia. On some platforms, I have an echo of my own voice, so I enable the aggressive echo management, but it says that it might affect my own voice going out. Is that true, since I need to be heard as the interpreter? It can affect your own voice going out, because the aggressive echo management can't, I mean, it's software and it will try and guess what's an echo and what's not. So sometimes it can't tell, you know, what's your intended actual voice and what's an echo. If you're getting that problem, I would suggest either the duvet blanket trick or a smaller room, smaller booth, something like that.
In this case, it's interesting. It's when I go on to Gabriella, who's here. I go on to her sound baths, and so we go in, and I've got original sound, and so on. And I talk to her, and I hear my voice coming back at me, but Gabriella doesn't hear an echo. I hear my voice coming back at me as if it were coming out of her speakers. And the only way it stops is if I put on the aggressive echo management. But then, of course, you forget, and you might have an interpreting job the next day or an hour later or whatever. And so I was just wondering about how that might affect. So thank you.
I would, if that's happening with one specific person, is that whilst she's wearing headphones? Because that shouldn't, like, if she's wearing headphones, then you shouldn't hear that coming back. But
Gabriella, I don't know. Oh, and now I'm hearing myself again.
I hear that. Yeah, I hear that as well.
So do you want me to explain? So I'm not wearing headphones because I'm actually webcasting a whole sound bath with gongs and Tibetan singing bowls and crystal bowls and other instruments. So no, I'm not wearing headphones. But I have several microphones in the room connected to a controller box that is connected to my new laptop. So
sure, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can hear the same thing happening with you there, Gabriella. What I do is, Gabriella, is just go on mute for a second. Yeah, there you go. So what causes that echo is a slight mismatch between someone's speaker playing your voice and their microphone picking it up. It happens especially as you said, you've got a lot of other kit around the room, speakers, microphones, etc. If there's the more external kit there is, the more likelihood is that one of them is going to be slightly out of sync and is going to pick up someone's voice on a slight delay, and then it starts bouncing back at you. My advice would be to either wear headphones or disconnect external speakers, because that tends to fix the problem. Make sure that you're using just one particular mic and you don't have other microphones plugged in. If you've got a whole other recording setup for, say, a band or something, I'd recommend kind of just unplugging that setup if you're just doing a Zoom presentation or something, just for that. And that should solve that problem. Yeah. Antonella is having trouble finding the HD video setup. For me, and I'm on a Mac, so it might be different for other people. And so I'm on a Mac laptop. So if you go Zoom up in the top left-hand corner, there's zoom.us. You press that, you go to preferences, and then you go to video, and then you see a version of your camera. And then under my video, you see enable HD. I'm afraid I can't give you a step-by-step walkthrough for Windows or phones because I'm not on them right now, but it should be there unless you're perhaps on a phone.
If it's okay, guys, sorry, because I'm using a Windows laptop. It's on the lower side of your screen where you have the mic and then you have the camera. And then if you click on the camera, there is like a little arrow pointing upwards. And then you go to the video settings, and then it's just exactly as Guy said. You have the name of your camera, and then you have the original ratio and the HD option just below that, if that helps.
I think Antonella now says, found it. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, some of this, there's some really, really basic stuff in here that will be really, which will make a difference and be serious quality of life improvements. And there's some more detailed stuff that you can go into. Hopefully some of that, or at least some small parts of that, have been really useful for some people in just improving overall quality. I think that probably, and unless anyone has any really specific questions on Zoom calls, etc., then that
everything is excellent, Guy, and thank you for coming today. Now, do you have? Obviously, you are one of the subject matter experts. Do you have? I don't know, on your website or somewhere, like what would be the ideal setup? Saying, if you are using, I don't know, Wi-Fi, make sure you have this and this and this. But then if you have wired in, Ethernet, make sure you don't do this or you don't do that. Is that anything that might be available for us, interpreters on one of your platforms?
It's not actually something that we have on our website for this specific setup, though it's a good idea that we could make that. We do have on our YouTube channel, there are some actual instruction videos, not specifically on Zoom calls, but on how to record the best quality content for social media using your phone, for example, which does follow many of the same principles, which is kind of another thing that we could get into. But if you're looking to make a little bit of high quality digital content, photo, basic videos, then we almost all generally have smartphones and they've got pretty good cameras. So use those and get them on social media. Natasha asks, any advice on using a green screen background? My video gets very pixelated with the screen. I'm wondering if it's a lighting issue. Natasha, I'm just looking to see if I can see your video. Your video is off at the moment, if I'm looking at the right Natasha. Hi, Natasha.
I don't have it set up right now, which I could, but I think it's going to take a while. So I didn't want to distract anyone. And that's the reason why I don't set it up, because it really gets very, very pixelated. And I am now wondering, because I do work at different times, and I think it does get better sometimes. And I'm now wondering if I have more light coming in, that maybe that's the reason why it's happening.
Sure. So obviously, things most programs now, Zoom have, and some of us are using them. I see, Tatiana, are you in Cambridge?
What gave me away?
Some of us are using them right now. So yes, fake kind of green screen backgrounds are available. There are a variety of different reasons they can go wrong. So just overall reasons, sometimes they put an extra load on your computer and its processor and its ability to deal with that. And if it's a lower end one, it might go a bit nuts trying to deal with that. Other issues could be that you as a subject are not particularly well lit, and the software will have difficulty differentiating you from the background. So it will constantly be adjusting. So there's a variety of different reasons that could happen. Personally, in a professional setting, I only would use the green screen background if it's like the kind of lesser of all evils, i.e. you really aren't in a very good location visually otherwise, then just use the green screen background feature to hide whatever's going on behind you. But that's kind of a last resort in a professional environment as far as we're concerned.
Thank you. I actually meant not just the fake, the background that the Zoom offers, but I purchased an actual green screen that I can set up behind me so that my office is not visible. And I thought actually that it would be a little bit more professional, but so far it hasn't really worked very well.
Sure. So that's most likely a lighting issue. And to be honest, I don't think that at your kind of level, it's really worth the green screen purchase. Because, for instance, if we do green screen work with actual cameras, a lot of time and effort goes into us actually lighting the green screen just right to get it to key out everything. So it's probably not particularly worth your time worrying too much about that in this example.
Thank you.
Guy,
I'm sorry,
are you pro
Mihai?
Blue Yeti or against the Blue Yeti? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Jesse's been waiting for a while to ask a question. Sorry.
So besides the duvet on your head, do you have any other tips for quick soundproofing? I'm sure you can hear there's a terrible echo here. I don't know if it's because this room in particular is so big or whatever it is, but what should I do low budget soundproof?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you, Jesse. So for the record, as far as I can hear, your echo is not bad at all. And that is probably because the microphone is very close to your mouth, if I can see it there. So first step is actually, if you bring the microphone very close to your mouth, even in a very echoey environment, that'll actually help reduce the echo, because the mic will just pick up what's the most obvious sound right in front of it. Then obviously you go on to other options like duvet, soft furnishings, hard surfaces cause echoes. So environments like tiled kitchens, hard cupboards, they bounce the sound around and don't sound very good. So if you can be somewhere with carpets, sofas, big curtains, those help reduce echo.
So, for example, just hanging blankets on the wall. What do you think about that?
Yeah, go for it. That's legit sound treatment, and we do that. You can see, so behind me, there are some black squares. Those are foam boards which absorb sound, which we've stuck onto the wall, and there are others kind of around the room. And those, help reduce echo. And hanging blankets around will also achieve the same effect. Anything kind of soft, kind of heavy will help do that. The other thing, which is worth bringing up, which I forgot to mention on sound, is air conditioning, heaters, fridges, freezers, seeing as we're all working from home. Those types of things produce a constant kind of low frequency or high frequency humming and buzz, and that is really annoying to listen to if the mic keeps picking it up. So my advice is to avoid kitchen areas or being near to kitchen areas where there are machines, fridges, washing machines going off. But if you're in a pinch, and as long as you remember to turn it back on, then unplug the fridge or freezer if you're doing an important interview for 20 minutes. But don't blame me if you forget to turn it back on and everything goes to waste. That's a very big thing that we do with all kinds of interviewing in person and remotely. Turn off humming stuff like air conditioning and heaters. Okay.
We've had a lot of discussion about the difference between physical green screens and so on in the chat. Mihai was going to ask something about microphones, I think.
The Blue Yeti, is this something that muffles enough? In other words, contains all this humming, the Blue Yeti, and just allows the voice to be projected clearly, to the audience? What's your advice on the Blue Yeti?
My thoughts on the Blue Yeti are that it's better than nothing, but you'll probably want to go higher end if you're kind of doing more high end stuff. It is better than a cheap internal microphone on kind of a cheap laptop. One of my clients very excitedly told me that he'd gone out and bought a Blue Yeti and it has not made a huge amount of difference. I would get something probably a little bit more high end. Blue do make very good microphones, but the Yeti is very much the kind of lower level of their entry level kind of prosumer level. That's the thing. Price is not always a good marker of quality with microphones, but as with most things, generally the more you pay, the better you will get, but it's not always the case. So sometimes if through a bit of trial and error, a cheap microphone can actually be used very well. For reference, this is a Shure SM7B, and will set you back around £400 or euros. I wouldn't say that most people want to be rushing out and buying something at this level, because this is very much a professional level. like high-end professional level. So to give you a very rough idea on price, I'd say probably somewhere between 100 to 250 pounds, euros, basically the same thing these days.
So what about cheaper mics, Sky? What about cheaper, less expensive mics like the Gooseneck Fifine USB table microphone? It's like 40 US.
So with those, I mean, there's a huge amount of stuff on the market, and I'm afraid I don't have experience with all of them. It's going to be a case of trial and error. I would recommend the best way that you can find out more about specific mics is YouTube. There's no end of YouTube reviews, and yeah, go and watch people using the mics, and you can actually hear what the mics sound like on their videos, and that'll allow you to make the best decision. So because cheap stuff is it's hit and miss. You can get super lucky, or there's really bad stuff out there. I do recommend Rode overall. They're pretty good, pretty decent level. That's RODE, an Australian brand, I believe, and they've got a real variety of different stuff available, and they're a decent quality brand.
Okay, there's some more questions in the chat about it.
Yeah, Rode. Yeah, so Rode are probably, I mean, Rode are used like by very high-end professionals all the way down to they've got really like just consumer stuff. I do recommend them because they're a legit company. They've got warranty. They'll do repair and replace on most things, and they've got something decent for most price brackets. So, yeah. Kirill, sorry, I just saw your message about Rode there, but yes, you're right. Rode are good. Yeah. Any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I'd like to hear a tiny bit about how Guy calls his company now a content media company as opposed to doing what he used to do, and how you refined yourself into that as opposed to, running around the world with rugby teams and lacrosse teams and marathon runners, which I'm still in absolute awe of, I have to admit. And quite frankly, just so you guys know, the May ball that he filmed was at Chris's college, St. John's, which is behind Tanya in her background. And they used drones. And that was like the first time I'd ever seen drones be used for something like that. It was so cool.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, that was a fun one. That's St. John's May ball, 2015, I believe. That was quite a while ago. So yeah, the reason going into a little bit about ourselves as a business and how we market ourselves, and I must actually say that a big shout out goes to Julia and Know Your Worth, because being at her seminar in London really did help us think about how we market ourselves, and how we negotiate, etc. So that's been very useful. The reason we call ourselves a kind of a digital content agency rather than maybe like just filmmakers is that partly it's kind of capturing the vernacular of the way that our clients speak about what they need. So generally, clients, or the clients that we deal with, will talk about the need for content. Now, content is a very broad term, but digital content, social media content, is the way that our clients speak. And so rather than saying, oh, we're filmmakers, and then kind of fitting into content, we just wanted to call ourselves a content agency. And it's useful because we do a variety of different types of things. And we are interested in marketing ourselves as a kind of full spectrum digital content agency who can handle all kinds of kind of digital communications challenges for our clients. Whereas if you call ourselves filmmakers, then that kind of precludes podcasts and a lot of other stuff in the name. And we wanted to make it clear we were kind of full spectrum service. I got a question from Mark. Do we use B-roll much? Yeah, I mean, B-roll as a term is a fairly general term that basically is any footage caught from a B camera, and that will typically be kind of extra footage, like if you're filming an interview in a city, you'd go out and film some stuff from a city or around the streets, etc. We sometimes, especially now and in the last year, we've had to use a lot of stock footage, which is a replacement for B-roll that we normally film ourselves, which is very useful. Oh, I've got a Santiago, I believe, has come into the office. That's Santi is our content marketing manager, and he has come in on the weekend to do some extra work. Haven't you, Santi? Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Santi's working on the weekend.
But yeah, so we've been using a lot of stock footage sites. There's loads of actually really good ones out there now to fill in the gaps. We also did something fairly interesting, which is in the height of the first lockdown in about April in London, we took the opportunity to go out and film some content of the empty streets around London and released a video on that. And that has resulted in a lot of requests for like licensing that footage because it's fairly unique. You don't often see London empty like that. And so that's something which has been pretty fun, pretty different that we did in the lockdown. But yeah, also just a note on the kind of how we manage ourselves. Little sound interrupting there. How we market ourselves in the content thing is that it's been a very good thing that we kind of switched our focus slightly ahead of this year because being a general content agency means that people come to us and rely on us for remote kind of Zoom recording and remote podcasts and help with social media. Whereas especially in the height of lockdown, filmmakers, because they weren't able to go and film stuff, were not generally doing a lot of work. We were still able to keep reasonably busy because we were doing a variety of things. But yeah, that's just an aside on how we market ourselves.
So you're filming people's, like if I had asked you to film this would be something you could have done, and in whatever way.
Yes.
Okay.
So something. Yeah. So for instance, we're doing some mini documentaries. We've done company anniversary videos where, for instance, I've done kind of a series of one-on-one Zoom interviews with people, recorded those, and then edited those into kind of nice pieces or montages, etc. Oh, it's Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Julie, I thought your background was real.
It is real. It's just not real today.
I'm real.
And Chris is real.
Not sure about the rest of it, but I am.
So.
Hi, Guy. Where is he? I can't see him.
He's there.
Oh, there he is. That's definitely Guy. Hi, Guy.
Hi, Chris.
See, hi, Chris. And there's Cyril.
Hello, everybody.
Steve is here somewhere. There's Steve.
So he is.
Hi, Chris.
Great Steve. Hello, great Steve.
And Farouk
from
Leeds. And
Hi,
Birgit.
Chris. Hi, Farouk. That's what Farouk looks like. Okay. Good to know.
And MJ and Valia. So Chris knows a bunch of you. So hi to everyone.
I think I know MJ. I've met her somewhere before. Hi, Valia. I got to go. I'm off to the edge. Bye.
See ya.
Bye. See you at curfew.
So I'm sorry, I forgot where we were actually.
Chris does have that habit of doing that, doesn't he? So no, it was just a matter of asking you, if you're filming things on Zoom and so on. So if I were to ask, or if one of us were to ask, Zoom bombing, yes, Chris Zoom bombed us. So if I were to ask, for example, or any of us were to ask because we want some digital content, could you film us on Zoom or something? What would we need to do on our side? Would there be anything different other than what you've already told us earlier in this thing? Or is it pretty much that? And then we just put ourselves in your hands and you make us look fantastic.
I mean, it's pretty much the things we've already spoken about. I mean, all of the things that I've brought up have been mostly from the experience of trying to do, this remote recording and us trying to get the best possible quality out of it that we can. There's always going to be little hiccups because it's never going to be quite as perfect as doing it in person. But, one thing that we've actually done, which actually gets better quality, is we've been doing some chats with a pharmaceutical company, and they have some influencers who work with them. And we set up a Zoom call with them. And we then, over the Zoom call, talk them through setting up their phones and cameras to record mini interview pieces kind of in the room with them. So we're not just recording over Zoom, but we're talking the influencer or whoever is on the other end through how to set up their phone and their audio all perfectly and hit record themselves. And then we kind of do the interview or the chat by Zoom, but they're recording a high quality image on their phone locally. So there's a lot of stuff like that. It's basically a workaround. Things take a little bit longer and there's a lot of hand holding, but that's the nature of a lot of what we have to do at the moment. So that's one of the ways that we've done that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's also just recording a Zoom call and employing as many of the tips and tricks as we spoke about earlier as possible.
Jesse, is your hand up? I can't tell. No. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Guy? Because, no?
I have a question if there's a time.
Sure, Joy.
Thank you for explaining all that to us, Guy. I was wondering, well, it's similar to what the colleagues asked, but about if we do a soundproofing ourselves, how can we know for sure that it's not capturing noises from outside? For example, if a neighbor starts, I don't know, breaking a wall or there is something going on the street with an ambulance passing, what would be a good solution for that?
Move to the deepest, darkest countryside away from all humans. No, that's I mean, it's a good question. How will you know? And it's difficult. It's difficult for you to know when you're recording your own stuff. So one thing, again, a feature within Zoom, if you want to test your general soundproofing, let's say you've just set up a load of stuff and you're trying to work out if it's really echoey or not, then again, back in the Zoom settings, you can go Zoom preferences, audio, and then there's microphone and there's test mic. And you can press test mic and record yourself speaking for a little while. And then when you stop, it plays whatever you just said back to you. So then you'll actually be able to hear what your microphone is picking up and how things are sounding. In terms of one-off events or things like construction work or things like that, or dog barking, those things generally I would assume, because you're not going to know for sure, if you can hear it, then whoever's on the other end of your call can hear it as well. There's not a lot you can do about that unless you're going to build a full-on soundproof studio, I'm afraid. The more heavy kind of either curtains, things like that you can put up, the better. Close windows to keep that noise out. But sometimes you might just have to say, sorry guys, there's some construction going on outside and I can't do much about it. The further away you can move from it, the better. But that's 2020 life, I'm afraid.
Have you worked at all with Crisp.ai, Guy?
No.
Okay. I've heard good things about it, but I've also heard that it won't work necessarily with, the jackhammer out in the street or the construction in the street, but it should work for basic everyday noises. I'll put it in the chat.
Sure. Yes. I'm assuming that's a kind of software that helps cancel out noise, which is a good solution. Generally, software that does noise cancellation can it's better than nothing, but it can struggle. So yeah, as Julia said, with something like a construction work outside can be very difficult to deal with, even for, professionals. So it's, I mean, we've definitely on shoots, we've gone out and just paid off builders to stop drilling for 20 minutes so we can finish an interview. But that's always an option if you're really desperate. But yeah, it seems like, I mean, I haven't used Crisp.ai. Normally we prefer to try and fix it manually, but it sounds like that could be a good option. So yeah, I think that's about it.
So anybody else have any questions for Guy? I'm not seeing any hands waving in the air or any blue hands being raised. Well, thank you then, Guy. Thank you for giving us this wonderful present for the end of the year. And feel free to stick around, though it may get a bit deep into interpreting stuff now. But feel free to stick around for the rest of the time. We're only on for another hour after all. Though I have a feeling Santi might want to do some work in there, so you might be bothering him.
Yeah, I might need to. I might need to make an exit now.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But,
Well, I think that Hiromi just came in, and she was there in London. So if she wanted to say hi, this would be. Yep, she's here. This is the only chance she gets.
Bye.
So, okay, well, great. Thank you so much for coming, and we really enjoyed it. And say hi to Julian as well, who had been with us on the course as well, and have a great Christmas. And everybody follow Guy on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I don't even remember where else. If you want to put your where you want us to follow you into the chat, then people can see that.
Sure. I'll once we've said our goodbyes, I'll mute myself and send over some links into the chat, and then
Okay.
then slip away.
Okay. Great. Thank you again, Guy.
Well, thank you very much, Julia. It's a pleasure speaking to you, and hopefully there were some useful little bits of information in there for everyone. I know it's some people, there's a really broad range of technical abilities. Some people will know all of this stuff already, and some people might know none of it, but hopefully everyone gained a little something out of it. So thank you very much for having me, and I hope the rest of the afternoon goes well. Bye.
Thank you, and bye.